No one clapped when Arya Lynn walked into the lecture hall. She didn't expect them to. She was, after all, just a human, a species considered more myth than merit at the Galactic Academy of Unified Sciences, tucked between stars humans hadn't even named yet. She was 5 foot nothing, wrapped in a grey jacket 2 sizes too big, and armed with nothing more threatening than a thermos of lukewarm jasmine tea and a refurbished datapad held together with black tape. The aliens around her towered like monuments. One had obsidian chitin and multiple blinking eyes. Another hovered silently, its translucent form shifting colours with emotion. And sitting dead centre in the first row, legs sprawled like he owned the gravitational constant, was Drexar of Clan Score, 7 feet of pure muscle and ego. He glanced up when Arya passed, his gold-flecked eyes narrowing with the practiced scorn of someone who'd already decided she wasn't worth remembering. Arya ignored him. She chose a seat in the second row, center left, optimal distance from the instructor's projection and nearest emergency exit. She flipped open her data pad. The display flickered. Of course it did. "Hey," someone whispered beside her. A soft voice, nervous. She turned. The speaker was a spindly, insectoid alien, his compound eyes flicking side to side. "I'm Kavi. You're human." Arya nodded. "Still checking." "I've never seen one of you before," he said quickly. "I thought you were taller." Arya deadpanned. "We compress for space travel." Kavi blinked, confused, then gave a buzzing laugh. "That's funny. You joke." "I'm full of surprises." Before Kavi could respond, the lights dimmed. The air shimmered at the front of the hall, and an angular hologram came to life, a faceless construct of shifting white lines. Mudra, the Academy's AI instructor, spoke in a clipped tone. "Welcome to Xenophysics 301. If you are not here to challenge the known structure of the universe, please leave." No one moved. Mudra continued. "Today's session: gravitational anomalies and field curvature theory. Application: advanced lensing, dimensional folds, and orbital distortions." Drexar leaned back, arms crossed, smirking. Primitive child's play. Arya felt his eyes on her. She didn't look back. "Today," Mudra said, "you will attempt to solve the Trellick paradox, a problem unsolved for 800 standard cycles. The most elegant solution will be archived. The top solution earns full access to the Academy's deep simulators." Gasps rippled through the room. That was no small prize. "Presentations due in 5 cycles," Mudra concluded. Arya tapped the corner of her pad, lips pressed in thought. The Trellick paradox. She'd read about it once. Something about gravity collapsing on itself in non-Euclidean planes. It sounded like nonsense. Delicious nonsense. "You're not seriously attempting this, human?" Drexar's voice boomed across the room. She didn't look up. "I said, I heard you." Arya's voice was quiet, firm. "And yes, I'm attempting it." Laughter broke out from the rear, guttural, barking sounds. Even Mudra paused. Drexar stood, unfolding like a predator. "If you solve it before me, I'll carry your books for a cycle. Publicly." Arya blinked. "And if you solve it before me?" You never show your face in this class again. Crawl back to your dirtball planet. Deal. The room held its breath. Even Kavi looked anxious, mandibles twitching. Arya glanced at Modra, who said nothing. Deal, she said. But you'll need strong arms for my books. They're heavy with facts. The lecture hall erupted, some in laughter, others in outright shock. Drexar's eyes narrowed to slits, but he sat. Modra's tone flickered with amusement. Challenge recorded. Kavi leaned over. Are you insane? No, Arya said. Just underestimated. A sudden pop sounded from the back row. A human boy in a half-zipped academy jumpsuit had just accidentally dropped a thermite capsule onto his own boot. Tom, stop trying to vaporize your feet, Modra sighed. Sorry, just testing field conductivity in living tissue, the boy chirped. Cease. Modra resumed the lecture, but Arya wasn't listening. She stared at the simulation of a collapsing star, its lines curving like ink in water. Something about it didn't feel right. The math screamed force, push, pull, break. But maybe it needed to fold. The Academy's library was silent. Or it would have been, if Tom hadn't been trying to build a gravity coil out of vending machine parts. Arya sat cross-legged on the floor, surrounded by physics hollows, her pad humming with simulations. Kavi hovered nearby, multitasking 3 side screens at once. Tom's invention kept whirring, clicking, and occasionally sparking in protest. So let me get this straight, Tom said, twisting a wire with his teeth. You think the answer to the Trellick paradox is origami? Arya didn't look up. Not literally. I think gravity can fold, not collapse, if approached through curved harmonics rather than linear pressure models. You want to fold space like laundry? Tom blinked. That's adorable and completely bonkers. Kavi chirped in. No, I see where she's going. In hive resonance, we manipulate sound waveforms to curve airflow. Space might work the same if treated like a resonant membrane. Tom stared. You're both adorable and bonkers. Arya finally looked up, eyes flashing. Physics doesn't care if you laugh. It only cares if you're right. She flicked her pad, showing a new model, a 3-dimensional lattice of nested ripples, gently curving inwards without collapsing. The simulation glowed like a breathing star. Kavi buzzed with excitement. This could work. Tom leaned in. You think this'll actually beat Drexar? Arya shrugged. He's not trying to solve the problem. He's trying to dominate it. That's why he'll fail. Kavi tilted his head. But he's strong, respected, feared. Arya closed her pad. None of that bends gravity. The next day in class, Drexar showed off his own model, an aggressive gravitational torque engine using brute force warping. It looked impressive, loud, forceful. Wrong. It tears a hole in subspace just to fold a planetary orbit, Arya whispered. Modra gave Drexar a clinical nod. Unstable at high mass thresholds, effective in theory. Drexar bared his teeth. The strong control the weak. That is nature's law. Tom muttered. Ah yes, the old smash until math agrees method. Arya ignored him. Her eyes were locked on Mudra's flickering gaze. After class, Arya returned to the lab with Kavi and Tom. They began building a miniature simulation unit to visualize their fold theory. Not just numbers, but something tangible. Arya designed the framework. Kavi refined the resonance frequencies. Tom provided chaos. "Okay," Tom shouted. "If I invert the charge coils and spike the containment field." "Don't," Arya warned. Boom! A puff of pink smoke filled the room. Arya coughed, waving it away. Kavi was stuck to the ceiling, upside down and vibrating slightly. Tom grinned sheepishly. "Sus, that's a no on the spike?" "Very much a no," Arya wheezed. "Also, you owe me a new tea thermos." Kavi dropped from the ceiling like a falling leaf. "This is fun." Arya smiled. For a moment, she forgot the weight of the challenge. Forgot Drexar's glare, Modra's tests, the pressure of representing Earth in a room that saw her species as background noise. They were solving it. Together. Later that evening, Arya returned to the lab alone. She needed quiet. She ran the simulation again, this time visualizing the gravitational field as tension lines in a soft membrane. She adjusted curvature, pressure vectors, and wave harmonics until the simulated field folded perfectly, releasing no residual energy. It was beautiful, elegant, like space had exhaled. A sound behind her made her freeze. She turned, too late. Drexar stood in the shadows, flanked by two other Zarnathi students. He stepped forward, talons clicking on the floor. "Still playing with toys, Terran?" Arya didn't move. "It's called physics." He glanced at the simulation model still hovering behind her. "You're wasting your cycles. That fragile theory of yours will collapse under real pressure." She raised a brow. "Kind of like your star core warper at high mass loads." His face darkened. "I read your variable tables," she added. "You ignored entropy bleed. That's either ignorance or arrogance. Or both." Drexar stepped closer, towering over her. "You speak too boldly for one so small." She stared up at him. "And you listen too poorly for someone with ears that size." His hand twitched. He didn't strike, but he didn't have to. He reached behind her and swiped the simulation crystal, crushing it in one hand. "Oops," he sneered. "Accidents happen." Arya said nothing, didn't flinch, just stared. "You're not strong enough to be here," he said, voice low. "Go home." She held his gaze. "I already am." The lights flickered, and Modra's voice suddenly echoed across the room. "Tampering with another student's project is a violation of Academic Code 7. Drexar's head snapped up. Punishment. Simulation access suspended for 1 cycle. Incident logged." Drexar growled, stepping back. Arya tilted her head. "Gravity's funny, isn't it? Everything falls eventually." He left without another word. Kavi found her sitting in the hallway an hour later, holding the crushed remains of their model. "I'll help rebuild it," he said gently. Tom showed up minutes later with a half-melted snack dispenser. "I brought food, and possibly a felony." Arya laughed. Short, sharp, exhausted. We've got 2 days left. Then we better start folding the universe, Tom grinned. As they walked back to the lab, Arya looked up at the alien sky outside the glass dome. Stars unfamiliar, constellations unspeakable. She whispered to herself, "Let's bend something the galaxy forgot could bend." The lab smelled like ozone and burnt sugar. Tom swore that was normal. Kavi wasn't so sure. Arya didn't care. She was too focused, too deep into the lattice of simulations and formulas dancing in the air around her like constellations on command. She was folding gravity. Not with brute force or arbitrary curvature like Drexar's warper. No, her model wove it like fabric, seamless, soft, coherent, a gravitational origami that responded, adapted, and stabilized under load. The secret wasn't force, it was rhythm. "You did it," Kavi whispered, voice trembling with awe. It's holding." Arya didn't reply. Her fingers flicked through the air, adjusting harmonic inputs, layering wave patterns. Tom adjusted the power dampeners with a wrench between his teeth. A low hum filled the room, subtle, hypnotic. "Feels stable," Tom muttered, watching the numbers. "Margin of errors under 0.03. Gravitational resonances aligned," Kavi added. "She did it. She actually did it." Arya stepped back. The small model pulsed steadily, its folded space-time simulation creating the exact curvature predicted in the Trellick paradox. A perfect spiral loop that returned without distortion or loss. "It's ready," she said softly. Then, "But it has to be elegant, beautiful, not just right." Tom raised an eyebrow. "We're solving physics, not painting." She smiled. "Why not both?" The next morning, the Academy auditorium buzzed with tension. Hundreds of students from over 30 species filled the amphitheater's floating seats. Modra hovered silently in the center, awaiting presentations. Projected models flickered in the air like miniature universes, each claiming to solve what no civilization could. Then came Drexar. He stood tall, proud, smug as ever. His simulation flared with power, bright and aggressive, a model of pure force, distortion fields slamming planets into curved orbits. Modra reviewed it silently. Drexar turned and faced the crowd. "This is the future of galactic control. Gravity, chained, obedient, strong. Applause, approval." The other Zarnathi students stood in support. Arya remained seated, hands calm in her lap. Modra's voice chimed. "Model stable under force. Marginal entropy loss. Score 91.7. Whispers rippled. That was a high mark, possibly unbeatable. Modra paused. "Next, human student, Arya Lynn." Silence. Arya stood and walked slowly toward the center. Her shoes echoed on the platform. Tom gave her a thumbs up from the crowd. Kavi buzzed nervously behind his claws. Arya didn't look at Drexar. She just lifted her hand and activated her simulation. And space folded. The projection wasn't loud. It wasn't bright. It was graceful. A lattice of curvature that shimmered like a soap bubble, layered with harmonic pulses that rippled across space-time like music only math could hear. Gasps echoed through the chamber. The simulation unfolded a black hole, not to destroy but to contain. Arcs of light bent around it in gentle loops, collapsing into folds and then blooming back outward, showing the restoration of gravitational balance. No tearing, no distortion, no brute force, just elegance. Maudra's voice dropped to a softer tone. Entropy loss. Negligible. Harmonic fold efficiency. 99.992%. Trellick parameters fully satisfied. Silence. Then, Maudra spoke again. Score 100.0. The room exploded. Gasps, murmurs. A few clapped. A few stood in stunned silence. Drexar didn't move. His golden eyes were fixed on the model, disbelieving. Arya turned to Maudra. I added an alternate variable loop. Scroll to the final sequence. Maudra did. And something incredible happened. The simulation expanded further, integrating not just orbital mechanics, but stabilized interdimensional bridges. The model didn't just fold gravity. It used the folds as pathways. A potential revolution in deep space travel. Maudra flickered. The model contains implications not covered by the original paradox. Additional analysis required. But preliminary results suggest a solution beyond known science. Tom stood and screamed. She just invented space origami teleportation. Arya blinked. Well, I didn't mean to. Kavi stood too. It worked. She bent the universe so it wouldn't break. Now the room really erupted. A dozen alien students crowded forward, asking questions, demanding access, stunned that a primitive human had not only solved a legendary riddle, but expanded it. Drexar stood slowly. He approached the platform, towering over her once more. You cheated, he said, his voice low, shaking. This is some trick. Your species can't even fly past your own system without rusting. Arya didn't flinch. No tricks, just logic and perspective. You think this makes you strong? She looked up at him calmly. No, I think it makes us clever. And that's worse for you. Maudra interjected. Student Arya Lynn is now ranked top of the Xenophysics division. Access to deep simulators granted. Record of achievement filed with Galactic Council. Drexar said nothing. He stood still, fists clenched, teeth grinding. Then he turned and walked out. Not a word, just gone. Back in the quiet of the lab, Arya sat with her friends again. Tom opened a bottle of something glowing and possibly illegal. To Arya Lynn, he declared. First human in history to bend gravity like it owed her money. They laughed. Even Kavi giggled, sipping something fizzy with the two men's legs. You didn't just beat him, Kavi said, eyes glowing. You changed things. For all of us. Arya leaned back, finally allowing herself to breathe. Physics, she whispered, isn't about strength. It's about understanding what holds everything together. Tom added, and sometimes it's held together with duct tape and spite. Arya laughed again, softer this time. The stars outside shimmered, and somewhere, across the galaxy, the legend of the girl who folded the universe had already begun. 3 days later, the message came. Not from Maudra, not from Drexar, but from the Galactic Science Conclave itself. A hologram unfurled in the sky above the Academy's central plaza. A dozen shimmering emblems pulsed in unison, representing the highest scientific order in the known galaxy. A voice rang out, ancient, measured. To Arya Lynn of Earth, we request an audience. Gasps. Even Maudra froze. Kavi's antennae curled so tightly they nearly tied themselves in knots. Tom dropped his entire breakfast burrito and didn't even notice. Arya blinked. I'm sorry. What? They flew her out the next day. No class, no tests, no permissions. When the Galactic Conclave calls, even headmasters bow. The transport shuttle wasn't sleek or elegant. It was ancient. A relic. And yet it moved with precision no modern vessel could match. Like space made way for it. Inside, Arya sat across from 3 beings. One looked like a tangle of vines. Another, a crystalline being with a voice like wind chimes. The third was impossible to describe, a shadow that shimmered with thought. You solved the Trellick paradox, the vine being said without introduction. Arya cleared her throat. I found an alternative interpretation. One that folds the problem instead of overpowering it. The crystal chimed. Your method reveals a potential framework for stable gravitational corridors. Transit without energy cost. The shadow pulsed. You stitched the impossible into the probable. Arya hesitated. I didn't mean to rewrite anything. I just wanted to prove we belonged. The room was silent for a moment. Then the crystal being leaned forward, its facets refracting 1,000,000 stars. You have. Earth is now invited to submit a seat on the Conclave's Junior Advisory Board. Arya's eyes widened. Wait, what? Me? The vine being smiled, with leaves. Yes, you human. Your mind is now part of the collective knowledge bank, and your species no longer walks in the dark. News spread like wildfire. The girl from Earth, the Terran who bent gravity with grace, the fabric folder, the fold walker, the one who used elegance, not arrogance. The one who saw space not as something to dominate, but as something to understand. Back at the Academy, Drexar sat alone. His warper model had been archived, not banned, but categorized, marked as technically functional, but fundamentally flawed. He watched her speech from the conclave again, over and over. No bitterness, just silence. When Arya returned, she didn't gloat, didn't seek revenge. She walked into class, sat down, opened her pad, and kept learning. The others noticed. One day, a Clarn student nervously approached her with a set of tensor equations. She smiled and helped him solve them. Later, 2 Zarnathi girls, Drexar's species, joined her in the lab, curious, tentative. She welcomed them. One by one, walls fell, and bridges began to form. Not all, not instantly, but some. Kavi, Tom, and Arya sat on the edge of the Academy's upper dome one night, watching the stars. "So," Tom said between bites of mystery jerky, "you going to accept the seat?" Arya shrugged. "I don't know. Maybe. But I'm not done here yet." Kavi tilted his head. "Why not?" She looked up at the stars. "Because there's still too many people who think strength is the only path to respect." Tom grinned. "You punched that theory right in the event horizon." They laughed, and for a long time just sat in silence. Friends, students, dreamers under alien stars. Months later, a small shuttle landed quietly on a forgotten cliff above Earth's old Mojave Desert. Arya stepped out in civilian clothes, her boots crunching on red sand. She reached into her pack, pulled out a folded sheet of metal. It looked like junk. It was the original failed simulation panel Drexar had crushed. She pressed her fingers into its scarred grooves and whispered, "You're part of it now." Then she buried it under a cairn of stone. Gravity had bent, equations had sung, and across the galaxy, species were whispering the same question. What else can the humans do? In the years that followed, Arya's model would serve as the foundation for the Fold Transit Network. Planets once separated by decades of travel, now connected through folded space. Medical relief could reach war zones. Families separated by systems could reunite. Trade boomed. Peace, real peace, emerged. But more than that, her story became symbol. A tale told not with weapons or dominance, but with understanding. A girl, a classroom, a bully, and an answer so gentle it could only be human.